How's it going, everybody? It's Jason from Ronin Bodyboards doing a Boog Chat, first one of 2023. So that's kind of exciting. A couple people probably noticed that. Hey, it looks like we got a couple people here already. Glad to see a couple people here already. Anyway, so people are noticing this is Sunday instead of a Friday. So hey, Nick. So I'm going to start doing these things on Sunday instead of Friday. All the previous ones have been on a Friday night, and I know sometimes people are working and can't really make it because depending on your time zone and whatnot. So I just figure I'm going to shift this thing to Sunday, and maybe we can get a few more people into the chats. So that's kind of what I'm gonna start doing is I'm gonna do it on Sundays now. So um, hopefully a few more people can make it into the live chats, and that way we can get a little bit more questions and people talking and sharing ideas and comments and things. That it really will help that things flow a little bit better. So I'm not just sitting here rambling about stuff. Um, yeah, so it's been almost a month since I did one of these. So yeah, I had such a busy December building boards that I didn't really have a chance to really get in and do a few of these. And then I was out of town for Christmas, for the week of Christmas, and so I wasn't able to do it when I was out of town. Went down to visit some family down in Arizona. It was quite a trying trip because two days into my trip down there, I started getting sick and I tested positive for COVID. So yeah, the last 2 weeks have been a little trying for me. Just you can hear maybe I'm still a little congested from everything, but I'm starting to test negative now, so I'm back feeling better, a little bit better. So I'm back into doing some shaping, and I'm back home from the trip, and so yeah, it's been a sucky 2 weeks, but I'm on the mend. Um, I did get one surf in since I've been back, just because I got to surf no matter what. I don't care if I'm sick. And if anything, it's probably good to go out there and get some salt water flush through my sinuses and whatnot. Um, yeah. So, I think it was last time I talked about my book log, and I just want to review a little bit. Is that I totaled everything up just this morning from last year, and I had 137 sessions last year, which is pretty good, but not quite as good as the couple previous years I've been tracking stuff. So that was kind of fun. There was a couple really slow months through the summer. I only had like 3 sessions in May, which was for me 3 sessions in a month is like practically not going. I need I'm usually always over 10, at least 10 sessions a month minimum. So to only have 3 days the whole month means it was pretty small and flat or windy and blown out and just no waves. Anyway, so 137 session last year, and hopefully I'll get more this year, and hopefully we'll. Hopefully we'll see. But that's the fun thing about the book log is going back and tracking everything and seeing where you're at. And how many I had 137 sessions, 254 hours in the water, which is kind of cool. Being able to look at that and know what you did for the year. So those are my numbers for the year. It's kind of fun to track that stuff. So yeah, shoot. I guess I'll get into some of the boards. My personal boards. We'll get right into this stuff. Maybe we'll get a few more people hopping in here before too long. But I think last time I left off with this board, which is number 13. It's the first 6-channel board. So no need to really go over that too much because it's in the previous chat. But so I rode. I was riding 13 and 12, and number 1 still a little bit, but 12 and 13 were pretty much the ones I was riding a lot through. Once I started being able to make boards here at my shop versus the Tubes factory, which were the first 5 boards. After that, I was like, after I had those two, 12 and 13, I was riding them. I was like, okay, and I don't know if I don't think I'd made I hadn't made any tombstones yet by that time, the 12 or 13, but I knew I kind of experimented with that shape for Colin Hurley at the Tubes factory a little bit. He has a board called a soap bar that I did a couple prototypes for him, and that was, and I know they've made production models for Colin since then for that board, but I wanted to kind of revisit that shape a little bit, and and I also wanted to kind of experiment on my machines and stuff and still push what I was able to do. So I had, I was like, okay, well, let's see what's the biggest board I can build, and let's experiment with the tombstone shape, because I knew I could. It was a really wide template, and I just really wanted to push the boundaries of what I was able to make as far as length and width go. So So I was like, okay, I'm just going to dive in and make myself a tombstone. And I didn't really have, I'd ridden a quad channel before that, but I was pretty much riding, you know, either the full, the 3 channel, which was number 12, and then the full 6, which is number 13. But I didn't really have a quad channel in my quiver. So I figured, okay, well, I'm going to do to make myself a tombstone, and I might as well make it a quad. And, you know, I'd also, you know, I wanted to experiment with some different tail shapes and stuff. I knew that too. So, and I didn't have a square tail in my quiver. So you know, fast forward, I'd made a few boards between 13 and this board, and you can go back and look at the history of some of the ones that I built in between that. But then, you know, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to build myself a really big tombstone, as thick, wide, and long as possible. So this is board number 22. Quad channel, square tail, 46 inches. It's 2 3/8 thick. It's pretty much as thick as I could make a standard core. That's a 2-inch thick core, but then you stack all the other materials on, and that's what builds up the extra 3/8 of an inch. So 2 3/8 inch thick for this one. It has thumb grooves through it too. Like I said, this is the very first tombstone. I didn't even have my tombstone curve yet. I was basically using a combination of curves to try to get this curve on this board. I didn't really have the template even. So this is the first tombstone that I'd made in my own shop. I rode this thing a little bit. You know, and it didn't take me too long to realize that it's way too big for what I'm usually used to riding. It's a wave catching machine though, like because it's 46 inch long, super thick, super wide. I knew it was just a wave catching machine, but it was just a lot of board. You know, you could probably DK or stand up on this thing without a problem and not worry about sinking or anything. But another thing I found out real quick is that this square tail is absolutely so loose and it's squirrely. It's just, that's another thing I learned about this board, is that it's just loose and squirrely. So it's not the thing about square tail. You get some extra float through because you're not cutting out all this. You get a little bit more volume in the tail. But the problem is, it's just it's a slide slippy mess. You know, I mean, as soon as what you have to do to compensate for that is to sink your rail in more. And then I learned that, okay, well, you're just killing your speed because of that, because you have to sink your rail in for control. But then, you know, and that slows you down. Instead of being able to ride more on the top of your board and have your board track the direction. So you had a good channel set up, but it's still, as soon as I started leaning forward on this thing, it started getting a little side slippy. So yeah, I mean, it was a fun board and a good experiment. And, you know, it's something I've thought about with this, is just to go in and chop the tail off a little bit and give it a good tail design. But, you know, like I said, I don't tend to go backwards on my boards too much. I usually just like to move forward. So, you know, this was a good experiment, and I rode a little bit, and I'll still break it out on a super small summer day just for fun, just to have some fun. But on these days, I'm usually riding my normal tombstone, which we'll probably get into that in the next book chat, because it's not going to be in a number I can cover this week. Anyway, so, you know, I knew I liked a quad channel, so, you know, fast forward, that was number 22, and so 24 was I'd seen a few of the Delta bat tails that, you know, Mez was doing, I think, on some science boards, and maybe maybe it was an NMD had maybe a Delta bat or something. But I really wanted to experiment with the tail, and I built one of the previous ones. I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what number it was. I built it for the website, and it was up there for a while, but I didn't knock the bump down on it. So I figured, you know, I learned something by building that other board before I built this board, is that center bump is just going to be you know, it's right in the center right here. So anyway, this is number 24. I was like, okay, a quad channel. It seemed to make sense with this tail. So, because what happens is you get all the points of the ribs line up with the points of the tail, right? So you get a cohesive channel and tail design, because, you know, your ribs come out at all these individual points. So the channels tend to work really good with the tail with the quad channel and Delta bat. So this one also had a diamond nose. It has my normal channels in the front. It's a single stringer. Gosh, I think, yeah, it has mesh. So single stringer mesh. I rode the heck out of this board. I really, really liked it. I caught a lot of really fun waves with this board. I have some really fun memories. But what I did with this, though, is you can kind of tell as I took, and instead of keeping the center bump right here, I just knocked that way back down, so that way it's less of a ball cruncher. It really, really helps. Like, it was cool because you can, you can lock your hips into the it's kind of like how scallop tails work, is you can lock your hips or your thighs right into these points, and it really, but you knock the center bump down, so that way you're not getting crunched on when you land in air, or, there's just at certain times where it's just punishing on the lower region of your body, man. So having this thing knocked down is kind of a good thing. So yeah, this board was a lot of fun. I want to say this might even be one of the original black PP cores as well. I talked a little bit about that in the last chat, but yeah, this is a super good board. I rode the heck out of this board for quite a while. I mean, it's got a little dent right here. I don't know if you can kind of see it. It's gotten a little bit of damage over the years, but I mean, it's still rideable. Every once in a while, I get nostalgic and break this thing out and ride it a little bit. It's still totally rideable, but yeah, good board, 2024. So, I was, wanting to experiment outside of my scallop tails that I've been riding. So the 3 scallops. I hadn't really done the 3 to 6s much yet. So, I really wanted, and I was curious about how those other tails were. People ask me all the time, well, how does this tail work versus that tail? So the only way you have firsthand knowledge is by getting in, making these boards and testing them yourself. You can get some rider feedback from people, but really there's no better way to learn about how a tail works than just getting out there and riding it and experimenting with yourself. Their firsthand experimenting is the only way to really get some firsthand knowledge. So, oh shoot, yeah, I guess I would get into this. So I really like the tombstone shape. So I figured, I was like, okay, now that one was a little bit too big, and I really wanted to make something that was a little bit more small, more prone rideable. So, and I figured I knew that the template was going to be popular. So I figured I just might as well make a template for it. Let me grab that real quick. I'll show you the template for it. It's right over here. Yeah. So, I use hard 1/4-inch melamine board for my it has MDF in the center and then melamine on the outside. These are the things I use for my template. So I took it. I used the combination of curves that I had used on the big one that I just showed you. I figured I might as well make a hard template because I'm going to be making more of these tombstone boards. So this is my 42-inch template for 42-inch tombstones. It really works up to about 44 now. I can make a 44-inch tombstone with this template, even though I made it for my original 42. But basically every tombstone I've made since 26 is using that template. So I figured I wanted to make a more prone template. Hey, I realize there's 4 people here. If anybody's got any questions, fire away in the chat window or wherever, however you're on your phone or something. I think there's a way to pop something out in the chat window out on your phone, and you can ask questions. Feel free to fire away questions. I'll definitely answer anything anybody's got. So, yeah. So anyway, so this is number 26. I'd maybe done some channels that were fading from 1 channel to 2 channels, but I really wanted to get into something that was even more complicated. So this might be one of the very first ones that I did where I was taking and so this is my 42-inch tombstone. It's number 26. Like I said, it has thumb grooves through the front half here. And so for the channel setup on this, I really liked V-tails. If you've been watching all these stuff, a lot of my early tubes boards were all V-tails. And for me, as soon as I realized how side slippy that square channel was, I wanted to go back to a V-tail on this board, and because I just really love V-tails, and I think that because of this thing is it's all based off of Pipo. If you know the history of the wooden belly boards that were Hawaiian boogie boards, the original ones were just pieces of wood, and they're roughly shaped, and they were just belly boarding on those things, and they're called Pipos. They're like a small Alaya, if you know what an Alaya is, but they're just thin wood boards that people were riding on in the early days before they were making foam boards. So I got online, did a bunch of searching for those types of shapes. So that's what these tombstones are all based off of a Pipo shape. And I noticed that there was a lot of those Pipo boards that had V-tails. So to me, it just made total sense to be able to have this shape of a board with a V-tail. So yeah, this one has a V-tail. But I really wanted to get into some fading channels from 1 to 2. So this one goes from this one very early single, double to quad channel board. So And gosh, as soon as I rode this thing, I mean, I still ride this board all the time on small summer days. I never plugged it. And I don't leash it because I only really ride it on small days. But you can see it's got some elbow dents and creases in it. But I still love this board. I ride it all the time on smaller days. It's still such a fun board. You can even tell it's got some rocker in it. I mean, it's got to be getting close to 5 years old, and I've had just probably quite a few hundred sessions on this board. So such a fun board, man. I just absolutely love this board still. It's a wave catching machine too. So single, double to quad. It does have a short stringer in it too, like a Trident setup. It almost kind of matches like what the channels do if you look at it, where I got a little short rib, a long rib, and a short rib. And that's also something I was doing when around these boards. I started realizing that I need to be putting the stringers on the channel ribs, and I still do that today. So a lot of people ask me, where are my stringers at? The stringers are almost all. If you have just a single stringer, obviously it's running right up through the center. But say if you have a two channel or a two stringer board, people are like, well, where are the stringers at? Well, it's almost always on a channel rib. So depending on how your channels are laid out on the board, I'll drill the stringers. Excuse me. I'll drill the stringers and put the stringers on the channel ribs because it makes total sense for me because it's the thickest part of the board, and you got to core a hole out through the center of the board, so you have less room to get that hole through where the channels are at, and so it makes sense to put the stringers on the thickest part of the board. To me, it's just logical. So to put the stringers on the channel ribs makes a lot of sense. So that I do that today. So people ask a lot, and it's really easy to locate your stringers just because you look at the channels and where the channel ribs are at, and that's where the stringers are usually placed. So, gosh, I love this board. I can't say enough about it. Like I said, it's the first one that was made with the tombstone template, and I still use that template today for all the tombstones. So yeah, that's the next three boards. I don't want to jump too far ahead in the things because I'll end up running out of boards to show. Hey, Jim. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, it's good to see Jim here. Jim does all my screen printing. Hey, if anybody needs any screen printing done, he's the man. He does all. He did this sweater. I mean, he does all my shirts and sweaters and anything else that needs to be screen printed. You can hit him up through social media, or he's got a website at anxiousenergy.com. You'll see I do a lot of stuff for boards. I've done a lot of boards for Jim, so he and I do some trading and stuff for screen printing for boards, and it's worked out really well for both of us, I think. Good to see you, Jim. So yeah, there's some things that they're going to have to change for me here in 2022. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've been fairly successful. And it's been semi-profitable for me too, but the amount of money that I've dumped into this business, it's overwhelming how much money I've put into this business to keep it going. And I'm getting to the point now where it's getting a little bit of, it's got to be self-sustaining if I'm going to keep on doing it. And I don't want to stop shaping. I don't want to put the fear in anybody that I'm not going to be shaping anymore. But unfortunately, because of all the rising material costs, every board I make, I'm making less and less money on these days. And, I constantly get people commenting on my boards. They're like, hey, I want to get a board similar to this and that, and how much is it going to cost? And, for the longest time, I've tried to keep my prices competitive with basically a stock board, or maybe even sometimes even cheaper than a stock board. But, those brands, they're offering a product. They don't offer a service. So, and I like to think of what I do as offering a service. I offer a custom order service where I work with the person to figure out all the details of their board. And that's a whole different type of thing than buying a board, from bodyboarding or Alternative Surf or 662 or the foam company or any of the Boog shops or brands. You basically just go to their website and you look through what they have available and you pick and choose, and you pay, and, you got a range of things to choose from, but you don't really get to pick your colors or pick your stamps or mix these odd combinations of things like what a custom service offers. So, I'm at the point now where, I got to start charging maybe even a little bit more than what I've been doing in the past, just because I'm offering a service, not a product. I mean, I do offer a product in the end, but I offer all my knowledge and service throughout the whole thing too. So, and that's something that these other, I mean, yeah, you can write and ask questions to some of these shops and things, and they'll be responsive, but they're not going to be, you know. And here you go. You know, I'm not trying to knock you at all, but I get that the question that just popped up in the chat. I get hit with this all the time. You know, I'm 2 foot. You know, I'm 200 pounds. I'm 5'7". What would you recommend? You know, and the thing is, and I realize you say you usually ride 42.5 boards, but do you? And then this is where it comes in. Where I'm trying to say is I offer a service now, and you're tapping into my knowledge about things, and that's got value to it. So, you know, what would I recommend? Okay, well, you know, obviously you're probably Hawaiian, but do you ride warm water or cold water? Now, see, it opens up all this customer service and questions that I have to deal with on every single board order. And the amount of time I put in talking to somebody just to figure out what they want is a little bit overwhelming. And a lot of these other brands and websites and places, they don't offer the kind of knowledge and share the types of things that I do for my customers, man. And that has value. And see, you know, and then I have to come back with all these questions like, well, do you drop knee? Do you prone? Do you combo ride? Do you stand up boogie? And it gets into all this stuff back and forward where, you know, that's a service. That's not I'm not just offering a product going, okay, well, I got this board or this board, take your pick. This is me sitting down, sharing my knowledge and trying to work out the details with you on a personal level. And that's my time. My time's very valuable, you know? Yeah, that's the thing is like, I could have just spent, you know, 15 minutes trying to figure out a prone board that I could have recommended you, and now you say you just DK. So I really at times it's a little trying to try to no, man, that's why I'm happy to share this stuff, but this is why my boards are going to start going up in price, because I spend a lot of time figuring out just on a personal level what people want in their board. So. And you know, I realized that it sure would be nice, and this is something I really want to maybe try to do is get into doing a cost estimator on my website. It won't be where you could place an order, but you could go in there and pick out some details and get a rough price for like, okay, you know, I want a DK shape, but I want a double concave, and I want plugs for vector fins, and I want a full crescent. How much is it going to cost? But if I had something online where it broke down all those costs and you could get an estimator, and I wouldn't have to spend as much time trying to figure out what working with you about how much your board's going to cost. I could just send you a link. You could go in there and put in a bunch of details for different things. And then you can almost spec out your own board and then go, hey, this is the board I want, you know, and you already know how much it's going to cost. So that way it's going to cut down a little bit of my personal time trying to figure out, you know, working with you about how much your board's going to cost. It might help me keep the board costs down a little bit, just by not having to do as much customer service, because I have a page on my website that's going to break down all these costs for people. And that's something I'm really going to probably look into adding a page on my website. I you know, back in the day, I used to have a form on my website in the website store where you could just plug in whatever you want and place the order right through my website. But I ran into a couple problems by people putting in some stuff into the website that maybe necessarily I didn't want to necessarily build, and they had already paid, and I was basically trapped into building that board. And so I quickly learned that wasn't the way I wanted to do it. So I realized that I needed to work with somebody on a personal level. So I was agreeing to build something that I wanted to build. And that's another thing. Some things that I want to change in the future is there's a few types of things and people that still insist on, or not insist, but they really want, you know, and for me, clip crescent tails, man, and standard channels, I have no desire to build those anymore. I really don't. I mean, I realize clip crescents might be on occasion. I know there's some riders out there that are really loyal to my brand that really like clip crescents, and in certain situations, I understand why you need a clip crescent, because it's a super durable tail. Number one, it's a real easy tail for me to build too. That's the thing. And in my mind, why would you want a 30-year-old tail design? Not that, I mean, it works, but there's so many other things out there that are more modern and perform better. Why would you want a clip crescent tail on a 6-channel board, but I want a clip crescent tail? you're embracing all these modern channels and modern ideas, but then you want to put a 30 or 40-year-old tail design on a modern channel board, and that just crushes me as a shaper and somebody who's trying to push board design. I really don't have the desire to really build those things anymore. I'm and especially standard channels for me. I really never want to put a standard channels on a Ronin bodyboard ever again. So anybody that comes to me and asks me or asks for standard channels on their board, I'm probably not going to be the shaper for you anymore. If you want a clip crescent standard channel board, that's the last thing the bodyboard world needs is another board with clip crescent and standard channels. And I don't want to build it anymore. I'm over it. I have so many cool tail designs, and there's so many other ways that boards that I would prefer building for somebody, because I know personally that it's going to perform better because I've put my time into all these tails and ridden them all. I know that there's better performing tails out there, and the problem is people are so hung up with these legacy tails and channel designs that they just, that's all they've ever known, and that's all they ever want to ride. And that's cool. If that's what you want to ride, there's plenty of options and plenty of brands out there that are still pumping that same stuff out, that are it's just cookie cutter crap that they've been building for 40 plus years. And I don't want to build it anymore. I really don't. I'm at my wit's end with that stuff, so I want to push board designs into the future. No, I don't want to keep building all this stuff that's been done and just pumped out to people for the last 40 years. And it's so stale to me. And they're dogs in the water, man. I want to build dogs. I want to build high performance boards that perform well in heavy conditions. I don't mind building boards for small, softer conditions, but I'm done with standard channels. I think they're ridiculous. I'd rather build a flat bottom board than put standard channels on the board. I think they're really worthless. So anyway, if anybody's got any questions, fire away. I know I'm kind of ranting about the whole thing about clip crescents and standard channels, but that's one of the things that I really don't like I said, if you want standard channels on a board, there's nothing custom about that. I want to build custom boards that are unique and push performance, and building something like that just isn't doing that. And I don't want to be associated with those types of designs anymore. I'm over it. I want to build things that are unique and can perform. So yeah, I understand, Looney, but but hey, you never know till you try. And I'm telling you, I know firsthand that it performs well. And there's tons of I have built tons of boards for guys. Excuse me. I've built tons of boards for guys now that they've gone, oh my God, I'm so glad I took the chance and ordered a 3 to 6 channel, 3 to 6 scallop tail. This is the best board I've ever had, the fastest board, the best performing. I've heard that so many times. And I just can't, I'm over trying to convince people that these things work and that they perform better than traditional design boards. I'm even kind of almost overbuilding bat tails in a lot of ways but I realize, I'll probably still do bat tails, but I'm over doing the same stuff that people have been pumping into the industry for the last 40 years. I want to push board design, and if it means I lose a few customers along the way, that's fine. I'm willing to sacrifice the people that are stuck in the past. That will not ever push the boards into the future by just keep building the same stuff. I don't want to be part of that anymore. I want to push board designs into the future, and I want to turn people on to things that they would never try, and then all of a sudden they do try it and they're like, oh my God, why did it take me so long to try one of these things? But I'm over trying to convince people. I know that there's people out there that believe in the stuff that I build and know that it works, and I'm slowly convincing people one at a time. All you got to do is take the risk and try it once, So, you can look at the comments here, or you can go back and look at any of the social media posts on things. And I could post messages that people send to me about how much they love their board and how they tell me it's the best board they've ever had. But I don't feel the need to post that stuff online. For me, that just fuels my fire to keep on doing the things that I'm doing, because I know it works, because I'm a rider myself. I ride all these boards. I've tested all these channels and tail designs. I know they work. And yeah, no more clip crescents. I'm over it, man. And no more standard channels either. I have no desire to build standard channel boards anymore. I think they're pointless. You might as well just have a flat bottom board. They do nothing. You know what they are? Is they're real easy to shape, and they don't take any time to make. But people will still put them on boards and still charge you $300 for it, and because people will buy it. And as long as people are going to buy it, they're going to try to cut every corner in production, because it puts more money in their pocket. And granted, I just said earlier, I'm going to have to start charging more for my boards, but that's because it takes longer to build the boards that I make. It takes, to do a 3 to 6 channel, just to lay out the lines on a 3 to 6 channel before I even put a sure plane in it to start carving anything. It takes more time to lay those lines out than it will take me to shape a standard channel. I could do 2 standard channels in the same time. It takes me just to lay the lines out on a 3 to 6. So obviously I got to charge more for a 3 to 6 channel than what you'd have for a standard channel board, because there's, I could do standard channels in less than 5 minutes, and it'd probably take me 20 minutes to half an hour to probably hand shape a 3 to 6 channel. So obviously my time is worth something, and I need to charge for that. But I'm at the point now where I need to charge more for the designs that I have. I know they work. Yeah, yeah, Jim. I mean, flat bottom boards. I mean, yeah, hey, some guys. I just built a couple flat bottom boards just in the last month for a few people, and it's fine, man. I mean, they are loose. They're fast and loose. That's the thing about a flat bottom board, is it's fast and it's loose. So, but hey, like I said, it's hard to find a flat bottom board. You can't really. So to me, in my mind, that might be a little bit custom, just because you can't really find a flat bottom board out there. Excuse me, man. Like I said, I'm just getting over from COVID, so I'm just coming out of it. So if you hear me coughing a little bit, I'm just trying to hold it together over here. Yep. So Tunda, you're asking, is there any way to prevent a board from getting all bent with my knee smashing down onto it? So, first off, you can put deck mesh on something that helps a little bit with the denting of stuff, but it depends on the reinforcement on the board and where the stringers are at in the board too, and how you want your board to flex. So if you want a flexy board, it's gonna get creased, it's gonna get dented. There's things about that. It's a trade-off. You're gonna have to give up a little bit if you want a flexy board. Like I still ride a single stringer board with mesh, and almost all of my boards, after about 6 to 9 months, they're starting to get a little bit rockered and they get a little bit elbow creased. It's just the nature of it, because I like to have some flex in my board, but you're gonna pay a price for that. Now, if I went and put 3 stringers in there and double meshed it out, it'd be stiff and flat, and it would stay that way. And you wouldn't really get as much denting in the deck because you had deck mesh and it wasn't flexing. So, I mean, that's the trade. There's a trade-off in all this stuff, right? If you want to have a super durable board that doesn't dent or doesn't crease, you got to make it super stiff. But then your board's not going to flex. So that's the trade-off. So you're gonna have it's a compromise of things. So you gotta figure out what you want and what you're willing to compromise. So yeah, I'd say consider if you didn't want to get bent or smashed down or creased or anything, you got to make it stiffer. So that's just the reality of it. Hey, Alan, yeah, I know. There are some flat bottom boards out there, but really, almost everybody's putting some kind of channel into a bottom of board these days. So, yeah, but like I said, flat bottom boards to me don't make a whole lot of sense either. But I'd probably still do it because it's super easy to make, and it's easy for me to keep a cost down on something like that when I don't have to spend a half an hour carving out a bunch of channels out of a bottom of a board. It's super easy to make. But I don't really want to make easy boards. I want for me to make. I want to make complicated, harder things that perform well. Those are the types of boards I want to make. And I'm at the point now, after doing this for 5 years for my own brand, that I don't want to waste my time building boards that don't perform. I don't want to put my name or my logos on a board that doesn't perform well. I want to put my name and logo on boards that'll blow people's mind with performance. Those are the kind of boards I want to build. And I don't have to build anything I don't want to. That's another thing is like, I said yes to a lot of things in the last 5 years where I just scratch my head and go, why would somebody pay me all this money to build a clip crest and standard channel board? I just don't, it blows my mind. But then I have to sit back and go, well, and then I'm going to start associating my brand with those types of things. And I don't even want that anymore. I'm over it. I want to build boards that blow people's mind, that are things that they never even thought were possible, or a board, how well a board can track and hold its line in really heavy, fast conditions. Those are the types of boards I want to make. That's where I'm going to put my energy in going forward in the future, is those types of boards. I really don't want to spend my time making stuff boards that underperform. It's a waste. I really feel it's like a waste of my time, and it's a waste of my materials. That's another thing is that I have to in the coming year. That's another thing is that I'm going to have to start letting go of a few colors, just because it's so expensive just to have one more color. It would blow people's minds how much some of these materials cost. So what's the cons of having, Tim, you're asking, what's the cons of having a board that's too stiff? Well, I think a board needs to, for me, I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, but I like my board to flex, really have some flex to it, but I need it to have a recoil. Recoil is almost as important as flex. I want my board to flex, but I want it to pop back into shape. So there's something that happens with the transfer of energy when you flex a board, and you're going into a bottom turn, and your board's flexing, and you can feel it, and then all of a sudden you'll flatten out and you lean forward and you let that release go, and your board pops back into shape. There's something that happens in that moment where you generate speed and pop out of a board, and a board that's too stiff, you're going to come off the bottom, and you're just going to be yanking on it. And it's going to hold, but it's not going to have the flex and then that recoil pop that you're going to get on a board that has a little bit of flex in it. So I'd say that might be one thing, is that you're not going to get the flex and then the recoil thing that would happen. And then, obviously in a tighter, more barreling type of situation, it's nice when your board has a little bit of flex. It can flex into the contour of the wave too. There's something about that too. Just having your board hold and flex into the curl of the wave. There's something about that. And something that's too stiff, it's just not gonna flex into that. So there's definitely something to that. But like I said, it's just a trade-off of how much flex you are, what you want more. And obviously, if you're a bigger, heavier rider, you could probably get away with having 2 stringers or 3 stringers, or how warm the water is. There's all these factors that go into how it affects the flex of your board. Like at home, I ride a single stringer with mesh, but when I go to the islands, and I like I said, I've made many trips to Hawaii at this point. And I realized over time that my single stringer boards they're just too flexy and they just get just way too flexy. So I really like a double stringer board when I go to Hawaii. It's just a little bit stiffer, so you got to have a little bit more stiffness for those warmer waters in Hawaii. At home, the single stringer with mesh is perfect setup. I ride, in 50-degree water most of the time around here. So that's that really, just the water temperature will stiffen up your board. So, yeah, let's say you got a Cartel Roach one right now. It feels like it's sinking the board sometimes. Well, yeah, I mean, rider weight factors into it, and that's the thing about ordering custom, is that, I stock 2-inch core and I stock 3-inch core. So I can make a super thick board that's going to have all kinds of buoyancy. I can make a board thicker than, you can't find a stock board that's going to be over 2 3/8 of an inch. like I said, that's about the thickest, because most people will buy 2-inch core and then you laminate the skins on it. It gets up to about 2 3/8 of an inch. That's about as thick as you'll find any kind of stock board is 2 3/8, because no one wants to spend the extra money for the 3-inch thick core. So I've talked about this in a few of the previous ones, but how the blocks come is they come in 6-inch thick blocks of polypropylene. And then I have my distributor cut those things up into either 2-inch pieces or 3-inch pieces, because that's the best way to cut out of that 6 inches. So I mean, obviously I get fewer pieces when I'm cutting 3-inch thick, but I get the opportunity to I can make up to a 3 3/8 inch thick board that you can even get your hands around. It's stupid thick. So usually I'll take and sand those things down, and so basically I'll make between 2 3/8 above up to about 2 3/4 is about the thickest I really like to go, just because at a certain point you just can't even get your hands around the rails. But actually, in the next month, I'm going to be making a few thick boards. I have a few pieces of core that I want to make a really thick DK board. I haven't really done one of those. Most of the thicker boards I've built for guys are all prone boards, and I really want to get into doing a couple thicker DK boards for guys. That's for heavier riders. When you get up on top of your board, that's what you're talking about. Is like DKing, you all your weight's on the top of the board. Whereas if you're proning, half your board's off, or half your body is almost off the tail of the board. So your weight's way more spread out when you're proning. But once you jump up onto your knee and you're up on top of your board like that, all your weight's on the top of your board and you tend to sink a little bit. So it is nice to have a little bit more buoyancy in when you're DKing, just especially if you're a heavier rider, because you're just going to sink. So that might be something to think about, is that if you're having sinking problems with your roach, because it might be a little bit thin, going a little bit thicker might be the answer for you. Yeah, Jim. Yeah, like I said, I do all kinds of different stringer positions. Jim was saying how much he loves some of the different stringer combinations. Yeah, I do a lot of different stringer combinations too, where single, double, triple, short, long, short, long, short, long, V, reverse V. I'm doing all these crazy different, and then I can also do different diameters of stringers as well. So, and sometimes I've even done solid carbon fiber rods versus a tube stringer. So I really get into some crazy stuff when it comes to stringers and offer options that no one else in the world really offers. But you got to be willing to pay for it, because those carbon fiber stringers are expensive. I use my standard stringers are 3/4 inch hollow tubes that are epoxy fiberglass. They're not carbon fiber. So if you want a carbon fiber stringer, it's like 3 times the cost just for the stringer piece. So just be prepared. If you want carbon fiber stringers, and they're super stiff, man. That's the thing about the carbon fiber versus the epoxy fiberglass. They're quite a bit stiffer. So it's just going to make for a way stiffer board. So yeah, that's something that, I play around with all kinds of different stringer stuff. I've talked about that in a few of the previous chats. I've even broke out a few of the stringers to kind of show people. Yeah, Tunda. I have boards that are specific for when I go to the islands. 212. If you look through the social media, my main board that I've taken to Hawaii the last 3 times is number 212. I absolutely love that board. I actually made it a little bit thicker. I have what I call stepped rail, or stepped deck and stepped bottom, and that gets into where the rails are thinner, but the whole center part of the board is 1/4 of an inch thicker than the rails. So I get extra buoyancy, because I've talked about this in a few of my previous chats, is that when I go to the islands, when I'm at home, I'm wearing a hooded 5'4" wetsuit because the water's so cold. And all that neoprene adds a lot of buoyancy in the water. And what I've noticed over the years about going to Hawaii, when I'm in like a trunks or a spring suit, is that I tend to sink more in the water there, because the wetsuit doesn't keep me as buoyant. So I've over time I've learned that not only do I want a stiffer board, but I want a little bit more volume in my board, just to give me a little bit more float, because I'm sinking in the water, because I don't have as much buoyancy because of the lack of the wetsuit. So yeah, 212. If you go look at the specs on social media, it'll give you the rundown. It has it's a triple carbon fiber stringer in that one, but they're smaller carbon fiber rods versus the bigger one. So I did a triple stringer in that. I really love the flex in that board. It's a really good board for sure. I'll take it probably the next couple times I go to Hawaii. I only ride that thing when I take into warmer waters when I go to Hawaii. I don't even ride it at home. I've ridden it at home a couple times, but it really is too stiff and too buoyant for the waters here at home. So yeah, I have different boards for different water conditions, really, for different reasons, like I just explained. So, yeah, yeah, I know there's a lot of guys that kind of just follow. I've had people just create Instagrams just to follow what I do, and they don't post anything. They don't post a picture on there. They don't really follow hardly anybody. All they do is just get on there or I've had guys create an Instagram just so they can communicate with me to order a board. And I had a guy who just recently, I think his Instagram handle was solely for a board. That's what he put in there so he could contact me. And I don't think he's never posted anything. He doesn't have any followers. He doesn't follow anybody. It was just to communicate with me about getting a board, even though I can do stuff through email and stuff too, but just direct messaging and Instagram is usually how I work out most of my board orders. Yeah, Jim, you might be able to, Jim lives down in Texas. He's really close to the Waco pool, and he spent a lot of time in the Waco pool. And I know there's probably some things that you need different, even for a freshwater pool versus the ocean. So I'm sure Jim could probably get a little bit into what the difference is between, because I still haven't ridden in the pool, even though 2023 I am riding in the Waco pool. Mark my words. I've got to get down there and visit you, Jim. I really have been putting that off for way too long. It's going to happen, and it sure would be nice if we could We've talked about this a little bit. I want to get a few of the guys together, and we're just going to book up a public session. We're just going to pick a day where we think we can get everybody together, instead of going in there as a group and trying to completely take over a session. Where I'm just going to find an open public session where like 5 or 6 or 8 of us can get in there and just book it up. And Jim and I have talked about it. I think that might be the best way for everybody to do it, is just pick a day and then get the word out, and then everybody just go in there and book that day up. And then we're just going to do a little Ronin takeover at the Waco pool. I think it'd be awesome. I know there's quite a few people that said they'd be into doing it. So I think it'd be fun to kind of get down there and get a group of us together and catch some freshwater waves. I know there's a lot of people that want to go that haven't had a chance. So, yeah, and I want to see how my boards go in freshwater too. It's more of a knowledge thing for me too. I want to see what it's all about. Yeah, Tunda. Yeah, that's the thing is, the thicker your board is and the more buoyant it is, obviously, the harder it's going to be to duck dive. But something else I've noticed too is that I can duck dive like a champ in Hawaii versus home. And the big reason is my wetsuit. Is that I don't have all that buoyancy from my wetsuit, and as soon as I go to duck dive, I can duck dive and get so many more kicks under the water when I'm in warmer water and I don't have all that rubber on. It's ridiculously easier to duck dive when you don't have a hooded 5.4 and all that rubber on, because all it does is just pop you up faster. So yeah, but like I said, I've compensated by going a little bit thicker. But like I said, everything's a trade-off. So you got to figure out, okay, I need a more buoyancy, but I realize by doing that, it's gonna maybe be a little bit harder to duck dive. But that's the trade-off in the whole thing. So you got to you got to try to find that happy balance of specs for what you need and how it's going to affect. Do you want the float when you're riding, or are you worried about duck diving? So it's. You're going to get out there, but if you get out there and it's super easy to get out there, but then I have a board that's not going to perform on the waves once I'm riding. So are you willing to have a little bit harder time duck diving? So that way, once you're riding, you have a more positive experience riding the wave versus a little bit worse experience duck diving. That's the trade-off. So you got to kind of balance that all out of like what do I want and how what's going to work best for me. Ultimately, it's about the ride for me. I'll sacrifice the duck diving experience. So once I'm out there a little bit, and I'm going to have a board that performs how I want it to perform while I'm riding. I think that's what it's all about, is riding the wave and having a board that will perform at the most potential and give you the best riding experience for whatever kind of wave you're riding. That's the ultimate goal, is to have a board that performs at the peak performance, and everything else is secondary to that, in my opinion. So yep. Waco's going to happen in 23, Jim. We'll be working out the details. It might be a summertime thing once the waves get small around here. I know things tend to. I think they close down the winter months too down there. So we'll figure out something in the spring or summer or something like that to get down there. I really want to do it. And I know you got it down to a science now because you've been there so many times and you know the guys there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to do it. Yeah. Oh shoot, they're building another pool in Austin. Huh? That's interesting. Is it the same technology or is it going to be something different, Jim? So yeah, another thing I want to get into a little bit while we still got a little bit of time. It's going to be kind of the lake style one. Interesting. Well, yeah. Hey, options are good. So obviously that Waco pool's got all kinds of different waves and stuff. So, okay, Australian company. I wonder, is it like the one that has the big plunger that's in Australia? Is that technology? Is there still kind of like or is it? I don't know. Maybe I'll look into it. I haven't heard about the Austin pool, but I might do some clicking around, see what I can find out what kind of technology it is. So I really also want to talk a little bit about the mini boogs. I know they're getting so popular these days. Cool, Jim. I can't wait to see some more information about that. But obviously Waco is probably top of my list because I've seen so much cool clips and stuff from that pool. So I really want to get down there and try it out. And I really want to ride in the pool just so I can say I've done it. I still have never ridden in freshwater or any kind of freshwater situation on a bodyboard. So I need to make that happen in 2023. But yeah, getting back to the mini boogs are getting so popular these days. I just got an order for 4 little mini boards that are going to go to Maui. So that'll be after I finish this board, which maybe if people are looking online, this is the one I'm working on right now. Just about done. Just needs a little bit more work to do. And after I finish this board, I'll be building four mini boards. Oh, I know. I've heard about the bottom of that pool. It's brutal on people. I've seen so many people come up bloody from that pool in Waco. Seems odd to me that they don't put a softer bottom in some of these pools. Like just having something that has a little more like an epoxy coating that might be a little softer. I don't know how it might affect the hydrodynamics of how the wave breaks, but seems to me like having a rough, hard bottom, you could coat that with you could drain the pool and coat it with like a softer epoxy coating or something that might be a little bit more friendly if you bounce off the bottom of that thing. So that might, anyway. So the mini boards, they're getting super popular these days, and I've built quite a few of them at this point, and I've evolved the template. I started off with the template way back in the day. This is the original mini template that I made. This is in I'm starting to date my templates because I'm getting smarter. So I built this in October of 19. So I built a few boards off of this template, and after I built a couple of them, I was realizing that it's just too narrow. It was a little bit too narrow. And so I started just like offsetting this template to make boards wider. And over time, I realized that why not just make a new template? So, and I've refined it a little bit. And so this template was, so some of the first mini boards I made were made off of that template. But then just within this year, I went and remade this template that it actually has a little bit friendlier curve for me to shape boards through the front part of the nose too. I noticed that wrapping some of the rails and stuff on the other template wasn't quite as friendly. And so, man, I really, really, really like this template. I've made probably at least 10 boards now, or mini boards off with this template. I really, really like it. So I did this in 6/3/22 is when I built this template. And like I said, I built quite a few boards off with this template. It's a really good one. Another thing, it's a little bit longer too. Another thing, that's the thing is that some of the first ones I was making around 22 inches, and I realized that having a little bit more length might be a good thing. So I've tried to step them up to 24. Most of the ones I've been building lately are 24 inches. So the thing about once you go past that 22 inches, it starts to get into a material thing. and it starts eating up material. Like, because if it's 22 inches, it starts to be dimensionally at work. It's a little bit more friendly building the boards, and you have less waste, and you don't really drop as much stuff off. And what I mean by that is that before I get into that real quick, and I just built this one recently. I've only built one board off this. This is the Tombstone Mini, and I'm going to be building another one for the order going to Maui. But this is the Tombstone Mini. I just built this on 12/15 of this year. So this is a mini, the mini Tombstone template. You'll be seeing more of these coming out. I'm definitely going to build, like I said, one for the Maui, and then because of how all the core and stuff comes up, I'm going to have 2 extra minis out of all the core that I'm going to be cutting up for that order. And I'll probably do at least one more for the mini Tombstone for the website. Maybe I'll do just a standard shape too for the website. So my core, like I said, it comes 4 foot long, 2 foot wide, 2 inch thick is what I start with. And so when I go to make a 24 inch long mini, I can get 3 minis out of 1 core, because I'm going to, instead of doing the long direction, I'm going to cut 3 out of the big block, right? So I'm going to cut them this way. So I get a 24 inch by 16 inch block. I get 3 of those, and I can make 3 minis out of 1 piece of core, which is kind of nice. I think that's the best way to use the cores up. But the problem is when I get into the skins and the sirloin and stuff like that, it's not very friendly, because how I get my skins and sirloin, they come like my sirloin pieces are like, they come like this. This is a piece of sirloin, how I get it. And it's usually about 46 inches long by 24 inches wide. Okay, well, you think, okay, well, it's 24 inches wide, you should just be able to cut it this way. But the problem is that you need a little bit more to hang off the front and the nose of the board, just in case there's any kind of slippage through the lamination process. So you always got to overhang all the edges just a little bit. So if the board's 24 inches and this is only 24 inches wide, it can't really do it in this direction. Now all of a sudden I got to do it in this direction. Well, that takes up more than half this sheet, right? Because if this is 46 inches, now I got a 24 inch board. It also has the nose cut. So really it's a little bit longer, because if it was straight and flat across the bottom, it could be a true 24 inches. But as soon as that radius of the nose, that makes it, you need even more material to get over the nose, right? So if this is only 46 inches long, I'm using over half of that. So basically I'm using a whole piece of sirloin when I could make up to a 45 inch board just for a 24 inch board. And a third of this is going in the recycle bin, because I can't really use it for anything else. So you can see all of a sudden how come my mini boards are going to start costing more, especially if they're in the 24 inch range, because of how it cuts up in the material. I got to use a whole piece. I can make a full size board with this, but now I got to use only 2/3 of the sheet just to make a little mini. And not only that, if it's a full size board, I'd be using like most of the width of this. But now it's just a small mini board. I got all this off each side and all of this out in the end. It's just a really wasteful process to make a 24 inch mini board. It really is. And then it gets into, okay, now that's just the slick side, right? So now you get into the deck side of the board. Now, depending on where my skins come from, like if I get, because all my specialty colors come from overseas, and they come in the same type of sheets like this. They're pre-cut to length. And so basically it's the same type of thing where it's only 24 inches wide here. And now I got to get over the nose and wrap the tail as well. So I need like 30 inches, at least 30 inches to, or maybe like 27, 28 inches probably to get over the nose and the tail of a 24 inch board. So once again, now I got to use a whole deck skin like this to do a mini board, which I could do a whole big board for. So you can see it's a really kind of a wasteful process to make a mini board, especially in the 24 inch range. Now, if I'm all of a sudden, if I'm doing a 22 inch board versus a 24 inch board, now it might be a little bit easier, because especially if I put a tailpiece on the board. So I might, because this is 24 inches wide, if the board is 22 inches long, that might give me enough to wrap over the nose, but it doesn't give me enough material to wrap over the tail. So I might be able to do a 22 inch board, get it over the nose, but then I'd have to put a tailpiece on the board. That's how you see a lot of the mini boards have tailpieces, because guys are trying to maximize how they, and you won't see them 24 inches. Usually they're in the 22 inch range. So 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 that's just the basic ideas of skins when it comes to build my 24-inch mini boards. Okay, well, another factor is that I use polypropylene core, and that most of the minis out there are made with PE core or polystyrene, which is styrofoam. Like a lot of like the Wampers and all the stuff like that, I think they're using all polystyrene. It's just cheap junk core, right? And then and they don't use Surlyn. They'll use crosslink skins and high HDPE bottom slick. Those are the cheapest materials you can buy to build a boogie board of any shape or size. Polystyrene core, crosslink deck, and HDPE bottom slick. It's the cheapest way to make a board. And they just break down and break. It's just junk material, right? That's why they've started banning a lot of those types of boards on Maui. I've seen a lot of posts recently about they're putting the ban on all that garbage boards, which is awesome. I think it's great. It'll make for better boards and boards that last longer. But I don't have any desire to build any polyethylene core boards or polystyrene boards. I won't ever even buy that stuff because I just think it's junk. I only build polypropylene boards, which means they're going to hold up longer. They're going to perform better. They're going to have better recoil. It's just so much better of a core. So that's another factor of why my mini boards cost more, is because obviously of how I make them 24 inches long. And I kind of explained why the skin. I mean, I'm using skins that I can use for a whole big board, but I'm only making one little mini board out of it. So that's why it costs so much for my mini boards. Also, I put stringers in my boards, which you won't find probably any of the other brands out there that even really put a stringer in a mini board. And if you've seen some of the ones I've done, I also get into I'm doing three channels and 3 scallop tails and all kinds of crazy. I got some pretty cool, interesting designs on these next 4 that are going to come out. I don't want to get into that stuff because I want to save it for people to see it on social media, but. Yeah, so those are the reasons why I have to charge a little bit more. I mean, I'm going to be over $100 now for a mini board, which is what I got to do. It's just the reality of it. And as far as steps go, it's almost. I mean, every step to make a big board is the same steps for making a little mini board now. I mean, I'm putting deck contours and channel shapes and stuff. Now, it might be on a little bit smaller scale. So, I mean, obviously, it's not going to take as much time to carve out the channels of a mini board as it would a full-size board. So there's a little bit of time saving on that, but it's still the same amount of steps. I double rail my boards as well. I make my mini boards just like I make my big boards. I'm not going to sacrifice or skimp on any or cut corners just to make a little board. I'm going to put the same time and energy and all the same materials as my big high performance boards that I put into my little mini boards. So that's why they're going to cost more. And if people want them, they're just going to have to pay. That's just the reality of it. And people are, and I know how I have quite a few guys that tell me that my mini boards are their favorite mini boards, and all of because they'll go out there and buy some Wampers or some of the other brands out there that they're making mini boards, and then they get one of mine. They're like, oh my God, it's like night and day compared to the quality of the build and how it performs. So you're gonna have to pay for that stuff. It's just the reality of it. And like I said, it kills me to have to raise my prices, but it's just the reality of me being able to sustain this business and being somewhat profitable. And my time's worth it, and my knowledge is worth all of these price increases that are going to happen in 2023. So, another thing is that, I know I got a lot of guys out there that have ordered quite a few boards from me. And those are the kind of people that the more repeat customers that I get, I'm willing to work with some people that have ordered multiple boards. But if you're coming to me for your very first board, you're going to have to pay the what my asking price is for a custom these days. It's just the reality of it. And once you've ordered 3 or 4 boards from me, or you get some friends to order boards, then all of a sudden I'm going to be able to start helping you maybe a little bit with the prices on stuff. But if you're coming at me for your very first board and I've never talked to you before, you're going to have to pay, and it's not going to be you're not going to be paying what you can go into the store and buy a regular board for anymore. It's going to be more than that. It's just the reality of the custom scenario. You get to pick your colors, you get to pick your stamps, you get to pick how many stringers, you get to pick your contours. It's just the options that I have are options that you can't get anywhere else in the world that I offer. Nobody in the world offers the amount of options I put into a board. So hey, I want to keep doing what I want to do, and I want to be making some badass boards for people. And that's what it's been for me for day one, is just being able to make high performance boards for guys who really are wanting to ride some high performance boards and try something that's maybe a little bit outside the box. And you're going to be surprised on how well it works. I can guarantee it. I can't guarantee it, but I'm telling you, I've heard so many people tell me how good the boards are. So just try something different. You're going to be surprised on how well it performs. I just don't know what else to tell people, at this point, is that, I love doing this, and I'm not going to stop doing it, but I got to start charging more. It's the reality of the business, and nothing's getting cheaper in this world. I mean, all my materials since when I started, all my materials some stuff has gone up, over 100%. Since in the 5 years I've been doing it. My core costs over double what I was paying for when I first started this business. And I haven't doubled my prices. I started off charging $250 for a board, for the base price for a board. Now for the last year and a half, I've been at 300 plus. I start at 300, and then the details start adding costs. So the more details and the more stringers and the more contours and channels. And, another thing is the stamping. I don't think people realize, I do some pretty intensive stamping on some of my boards and branding and stuff. And I realize, some people really like the whole mosaic stamped bottom slick. That's one that I'm going to have to start charging more to do that, just because it takes me so much time. And, most boards out there have one deck stamp, and that's it, and it uses, a piece of foil, the foil you stamp with. Let's just talk foil here, like real quick. For stamping, like if you're going to stamp on a deck and you got one logo, you're going to use a small piece of foil about this big, right? And you can pretty much put any kind of deck stamp on a piece of foil this big. Now all of a sudden, if I have to stamp out the whole bottom of a board with all my random stamped out, I have to use how much of this foil do I have to use to stamp out? You have to use 2 strips like this, 4 feet long, across the bottom of the slick to stamp it out. So just the amount of foil I have to use. And then, like I said, and then there could be 30 stamps on the bottom of a board or more maybe. And that's it takes me so much time to do all that. Every one of them is hand stamped and individually stamped. And if I mess up one of those stamps, I have to throw away the bottom slick and then start over again. So the risk that I have just even taking that on and stamping out a whole bottom slick with all these random stamps, I think it looks badass. I think it looks really cool. And I'm really into all the branding and stamping that I do, options I offer. I think it's one of the things that sets my boards apart from a lot of the other boards out there, is just the branding alone, not counting all the channels and tail designs and everything else I do. But it's the stamping that really sets my board. It catches your eye instantly from a distance. You can recognize one of my board because the stamping is so unique. So, I'm just going to have those crazy stamped boards that take me, it could take me, 45 minutes to stamp out a whole bottom slick. Or, you'll see some of my boards that have like the R stamps all the way down the rails. I don't have any of them here right handy, but, just to stamp out, they're tiny little R stamps. It's kind of like this R that I'll stamp across the rails of a board, and I have to do both rails. And that's like 100 stamps. If you think about how many little R's I got, and I got one little stamp, and I'll stamp like 4 or 5 stamps, and then I got to put the stamp back on the hot plate and sit there and wait for it to heat up again. And then I go 4 or 5 stamps and I have to put that can take me like a half an hour or 45 minutes just to stamp out a couple rails. So, that stuff I have to start charging for. I haven't in the past. I just do it because I wanted to do it, and I believe in all this stuff. And I want to stoke people out, and I want them to have cool boards that look rad, and I want them. That's like brand recognition for me. I'm doing stuff that nobody else does, but I got to start charging for it. I can't just give that stuff away. I can't give my time away like that anymore. So if you want those things, you're just going to have to pay. And that's how I'm going to get in. And like I said, I really want to put that cost estimator on my website. That's something I'm going to do here within the next month or two. I'm going to start looking into my website and see if I can put like a cost estimator together. So you could sit down there and pick out all these different specs, and you could estimate out a board. And that'll cut down on some of my customer service and stuff off to do with messaging, bouncing back and forth to figure out the cost of your board. You'll have a good idea how much a board's going to cost before you even come to me and say, hey, dude, I did all the specs, and then, I might have a way to submit those specs to me, and then I can get back to you, and then we can figure out payment for the board. But I won't just be able to let you order the board, but you can pick out all the specs, send them to me, and then I'll reply and we'll work out payment. I think that's probably how I'm going to start doing that. It'll help cut down on some of the customer service that I have to do and cut for every single board. I think that'd be a good, and then you'll have all the color options as well. Sometimes I'll just spend a lot of time figuring out people's colors, like what color bottom slick do you have? What color deck skin do you have? What color stamping foil do you have? I can have all those colors on the site, and you'll be able to go, okay, I want a black deck, and I want a pink bottom, and I want a double concave, and I want, these kind of deck contours. So yeah, it'll give you an idea how much all that stuff's going to cost. So I think that's something I'm going to definitely put some energy into in the next month or so. So said, I think I'm running past my hour, so I really appreciate everybody for being here and all the continued support, man. I really couldn't do this without everybody giving me all the positive feedback, man. At times, this business is super challenging at times to keep the wheels on the bus. And, like I said, colors are another option. I'm about out of black skin, which I know that's going to crush a lot of people. And for me, it's a lot of money to order a big roll of this skin. Like you can't just buy one or two pieces. You can see the red roll that's right back there. That's my red skin that's sitting right back here. It's 48 inches by 250 feet long. It's a lot of, it's not cheap to buy one of those rolls of skin. So I'm going to have to do that in the next, month or two. I need black. Black's one of the most popular colors for skins. I got to have it, but it's just one of those things. I'm about out of white as skin as well. And that's another super popular one. So just those two rolls are more than, 3 months of my monthly bills just to survive. Those two rolls are 3 months of my monthly bills. So like I said, this business is a lot more challenging than I think people realize. And to me, I'm at the point now where do I get colors or do I buy my more core? I mean, I can't build boards without core. So that's going to be first and foremost. So if it means I don't have black or I don't have white skins for a while, that's just the reality of it, because I'm going to need to put more a core order in soon, and that's going to take priority over ordering black or white skins. So like I said, appreciate all the support, and I'm going to keep on doing these things. I got more of my personal boards that will be coming next week, and if anybody's got any ideas for topics or anything you guys want to cover, just fire away, in comments or send me messages about stuff you want me to talk about on these things, because I really think it's a good way to expand people's knowledge and help people figure out what they want. Hey, Ron, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for showing up, Ron. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. I definitely, like I said, any kind of repeat customers. I don't really want to gouge people for repeat customers, but if you're your first board, you're going to pay. It's just the reality of it at this point. So anyway, I'm probably going to sign off now, and then I really appreciate all the support, and I'll be seeing you next week probably. I'm going to start doing these things on Sunday versus Friday night like I've been doing in the past. So I think maybe we'll get a few more bodies in here and a few more. It'll help keep the conversation flowing a little bit better. Just if we have a few more people here. I know a lot of people will have to watch the replay, and if you're watching the replay, you can always comment on these videos, and I'll respond to the comments and stuff on the videos if you want to make a comment and you didn't get to watch live. So thanks a lot for everybody showing up, and I guess I'll just say ciao for now. Thanks a lot.